Hillary Clinton, guilty or not guilty? Clinton supporters feel like Clinton's been on trial for this entire campaign season. First, it was Benghazi, then her mishandling of emails, and now it's allegations she had a hand in blurring the lines between where the State Department begins and the Clinton Foundation ends. This week, an Associated Press investigation had everybody talking. It said here, this is the lead, more than half the people outside the government who met with Hillary Clinton while she was Secretary of State gave money, either personally or through companies or groups, to the Clinton Foundation. Now, this was based on a review of Clinton's State Department calendars, a review that the AP had to fight for in court. Now, the story was scrutinized, but this tweet was especially scrutinized, really widely criticized. It said, breaking, AP analysis, more than half of those who met Clinton as cabinet secretary gave money to Clinton Foundation. There's no link to a story there, and the tweet, I would say, is inaccurate. The Clinton campaign and several other media outlets have scrutinized the tweet. They've said it was wrong. And there's wider questions about why the AP published the story at all. They conducted a long investigation. Did they just want to show that they had done the work? Did they just want to show they had found something, even if it didn't amount to much? Let's ask the executive editor of the Associated Press, Kathleen Carroll. She joins me now for an exclusive interview. Kathleen, great to see you.
Nice to see you too, Brian.
Do you disagree with anything I said there in the introduction?
Well, I think that the idea of scrutinizing calendars of public officials is pretty normal procedure, and if people who are aspiring to the highest land in the office, who've already held public office, they ought to have their calendars scrutinized and taken a look at. The question for me is, why has the State Department and the Clinton administration, the Clinton State Department and beyond then, fought so hard to keep those calendars from us?
So to explain to the viewers at home, you filed what's called Freedom of Information Act request, trying to get the calendars. This was years ago.
6.5 years ago.
Eventually we had to go to court to compel the government to release the calendars.
That's right. And then when we finally got the calendars, there were discrepancies between those calendars and between the information that was in her emails. So we went back and said, are there any other schedules that the secretary might have been operating under? And they said, oh, you want all of it. So they've begun releasing, under a judge's orders, little dribs and drabs of the rest of her schedules. That total schedule for her first 2 years in office was what this story was based on, a review of who she met with.
Because you spent so much time working on this story, did you feel the pressure to publish something, even though so many critics have said it didn't amount to much?
Well, I do think it's interesting. We didn't say it amounted to, the end of the world. We said this is an important and interesting thing that people should know about Clinton's tenure in the highest office that she's ever held, Secretary of State. Who did she meet with? Who were those people? We deliberately left out all of the U.S. employees and government officials from other countries that she would have met with in the normal course of her duties as Secretary of State.
But the Clinton campaign would say some of the people you left in, the 154 you named, some of them would have gotten meetings with other Secretary of States as well.
We would have been delighted if Secretary Clinton, who would have subjected to our questions for that, she wouldn't answer any questions. If she could have told us that before we did the story, we'd have been glad to include that.
But saying they didn't respond to interview requests, does that give you the ability to just go ahead and publish it and mislead people?
I don't think it was misleading. We don't know why she met with them. She said so afterwards. I think the issue about conflict of interest is not whether there's an actual quid pro quo. It's the proximity. It's the impression that people have of maybe they got the meeting because they donated, maybe they didn't. She addressed it herself on Friday and said, well, she understands that people feel like there may have been a problem and that she'll, if she's elected, will take steps to make sure that there's not that impression going forward.
The Clinton campaign felt you distorted the data that you received. They disputed the methodology you used, but did not ask for a correction. How does this work behind the scenes? Do they call you directly complaining about the story?
We'd be delighted to have more engagement on this topic with the Clinton campaign. We asked them questions. They are unresponsive. They have been unresponsive from the State Department until we sued them to get the documents. So, we're glad to have plenty of conversations with people about that, and anything that they want to say to us that we can include in the story that would help illuminate their point of view, we'd be glad to include.
Really, one of the things that was scrutinized the most was that tweet. Let's put it back on screen if we can. It suggested that half of the people Clinton met overall during her State Department time were donors to the Clinton Foundation. Would you agree that tweet was inaccurate?
I would say that we're a lot better at breaking stories and covering news and gathering video and taking photographs than we are on tweets on Sunday, and this one could have used some more precision.
Does that mean regret?
No. If we felt it was wrong, we would have taken it down right away.
But it was wrong. It says that half of the people she met with were donors.
I think it was sloppy.
Sloppy?
Yeah.
Why not delete it? Why not take it down and correct it?
Well, maybe going forward we would need to work more on our precision on the tweets. The story, it linked to I would correct one thing that you did say. It did include a link to the story in the tweet itself, and the story itself is completely rock solid. As you say, nobody has had anything to say about the story itself.
Sometimes a story can lead a misleading impression with people, though, even if the story isn't exactly false, right? By focusing so heavily on something, you give the impression that there's a fire there when really there's only smoke.
I don't think the story was fiery at all. If you read it, it's very measured, and it spends a lot of time at the very top of the story explaining what we are writing about, what we're not writing about, why we excluded the people that she would have met with in the normal course of her duties, because frankly that would have been unfair for us to do that.
But you and I know what happens, right? This is what happens. Let's watch Donald Trump using this story the way he did on the campaign trail.
And wait till you see when it's revealed, all of those people, now it looks like it's 50% of the people that saw her had to make contributions to the Clinton Foundation.
So he's taking the information from the tweet, extrapolating it, and I would say I was misleading people on the campaign trail. Isn't that the problem we face as journalists, that our words are taken as shorthand and they're cherry-picked?
It's why we write stories with real care and precision, and need to work more on our tweets with care and precision. But you know, all of us can't be held responsible for the way that everybody thinks about and responds to and talks about the coverage. Our responsibility is just to give them fair and balanced, rock-solid reporting, and let them agree with it, disagree with it, talk about it, think what they might about it.
One more Twitter question for you. This is a tweet yesterday. It also gained a lot of scrutiny online. It says, Dwayne Wade and Donald Trump speak out on Twitter in the wake of the NBA star's cousin's fatal shooting. And people said you shouldn't have linked Trump and Wade in this way.
It was clumsy.
Clumsy. Is this a social media problem more broadly for the AP?
I think, as I said earlier, we're better at news gathering than that we are at promotion. It's not been 170 years of AP. The kind of promotion that's second nature to somebody like you.
Oh, I was about to tell you that I actually screw up on Twitter on a regular basis.
Well,
but social media is difficult, and I wonder if you have to talk to the staff about these clumsy tweets.
We do it all the time, and believe me, we will be again.
Probably a problem or a challenge you didn't face when you took over the AP years ago.
No, that's true, but there have always been challenges in these jobs, and this is the one today.
Kathleen, great to see you. Thank you for being here.
Thanks a lot, Brian.
Before we go